plenty of counterfeit items out there. And that is wrong. The seller on that listing can get a special little badge saying these shoes are legit, eBay backs it up. If they lose third-party sellers, they lose revenue.
Entrepreneur that rhymes with bagel. Podcast begins now.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Podcast, episode 19.
19, all right.
19.
Here we go.
So we start these off with the question of the day. Okay, are you ready, Josiah?
Yes, what do you have?
Would you rather be stuck in a tree 15 feet up or in a hole 15 feet down?
For how long?
Maybe 5 hours?
5 hours. In a hole or in a tree 15 feet up or down? What's the environment? Like where?
That's all the context I'm going to give you.
What time of year? Is it raining?
Is it in Alaska? Is it not in Alaska?
Okay. Well, so based off of that, I would choose 15 feet up in a tree. I'd bring some form of deer stand with me and a rifle. And sit there. Wait for maybe
Happily.
Maybe bear bait the area. Wait for a little black bear or big old brown bear. And do the local community a favor by putting that creature down. Or maybe wait for a deer or a moose, something a little tastier. But yeah, hands down in a tree. If I get to make all the
I had no
rules
other context
about the environment, the context. Now, in a hole, major.
See, this one I was going to say, though. I'll let you finish. Sorry,
Okay.
but I was going to say, with your bear baiting and your deer stand thought process, I was like, but would it be more intense and more of an adrenaline rush if you did have the hole and something fell in it with you and you had to fight it?
I'm not sure how that relates to the question. I think...
No, I just meant like you turned the being stuck in a tree for 5 hours, 15 feet up into like, okay, I'm going to turn it into hunting. But I'm wondering, similar concept, but it falls into the hole with you. Like you set up something beforehand, you get in the hole, and then you're like ready waiting.
That's a terrible way to hunt.
Yeah, I just was kind of wondering if you would even find it more of an adrenaline rush.
Military 101, the force with the high ground has the upper hand.
Very true. I understand your point. I know that clearly hunting from the tree is better. I was just wondering if it'd be more of an adrenaline rush. Probably would be.
Because you're more likely to die. Might be the last adrenaline rush of your life.
Very well could be.
Yeah, so I mean, unless you're like in a World War II situation where you need to be in a bunker, you need to be a little more fortified. I think being up in a tree gives you the upper hand in most scenarios. Especially if, I think personally, if there's inclement weather, depending on the weather, being at low ground when it's raining is risky. Done it myself. You get wet. Versus in a tree, yeah, you'll get wet, but the water's going to drip down. You're not going to be in a puddle.
This is true. Or even the same context for snow. I enjoy the fact that you turned this into, okay, what's the context? Let me find all the other things, resources that are around me or that's happening, maybe the environment. And then, okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to turn this into something But if you had to get stuck in a hole, this is what I was thinking. If I had to be stuck in a hole, I'd probably like figure out how to dig or something. Not to dig your
And
way
make
out,
the hole bigger.
but like make some tunnels or just do something for 5 hours.
You would become a mole. And
I
you would
prefer rabbit, but okay, that's fine. I guess.
you would fully commit to your new lifestyle as a whole person. You would tunnel to the center of the
mole in
earth.
the hole? Is that what my new
Tunnel
name
to the
would
center
be?
of the earth with the other creatures.
That's not what I meant.
That's what it sounded like.
But it was just interesting because similar concept. What
Have
you
you-
did in the
have
tree, you were like, okay, we're going to turn this into, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm at least going to hunt versus what do you do in a hole?
Have you ever in your life dug with a shovel for
Now-
5 hours?
Didn't say there was a shovel. What if I had to use my hands?
Even
What was
worse.
in the hole?
Even worse.
That doesn't sound like fun. No. But
Terrible.
what else are you supposed to do for 5 hours?
Sit there.
I would probably try to
Think
like,
about what you did to
maybe
get in that
dig
hole.
through more so then I could have some sort of covering, especially if it's raining or snowing. Maybe even dig my tunnel out so you can get out early. Basically make stairs. That'd be kind of cool.
See, you're changing the rules. You're stuck in there for 5 hours. Doesn't matter what you dig. You're getting out in 5 hours.
It might take me 5 hours, but I'm going to get out.
What?
To make the stairwell.
No, you're stuck in the hole for only 5 hours. It doesn't matter if you dig stairs.
Hold on,
It doesn't
hold
matter
on.
if
Who
you
set
dig
the
your way out.
rules here?
That was the question.
It says, would you rather be stuck in a tree 15 feet up or in a hole 15 feet down? You asked for context. You were like, okay, how long? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to put a random number on it. 5 hours.
Well, if it's a
Do you want me to
escape
make an-
situation, you can jump out of a tree from 15 feet and be perfectly fine. Human body can sustain that fall if you do it right.
But you could also climb out of the hole.
15-foot hole?
Yeah, you could do something, build a tunnel, build stairs.
It's going to take you longer than just letting go.
Yes, but it's totally
so
two different things.
No matter what way you slice the block of cheese,
I'm
you're
not
wrong.
trying to say the hole is better. All I was saying is
That
like,
is what you were saying.
no, it wasn't. It was just the context of like, okay, you applied that same logic and thought process to the tree. Now let's apply it to the hole.
Okay.
You can just say I'm right. It's fine.
All right. So in that case, I would be overjoyed to sit in a hole 15 feet down with my mole friends and dig for worms and crickets to munch on
Ew.
for 5 hours.
Ew. Okay. I think we're done now. That you took that too far. Gross.
So be it.
Okay. This is episode 19. So last episode 18, we covered the Alaskan weird travel market right now. Mostly having to do with the lack of rental cars from major companies. And then because of that, how travelers are reconsidering their plans to visit. And we covered several options on other ways you could rent a car or rent something else that you can drive, or even just use the train or a bus or whatnot if you still want to travel around Alaska. But we talked about the big one, Turo, how Turo is now making a big opportunity to help the rental car market. And if you're not sure what Turo is, it's basically like Airbnb but for cars. But I'm going to leave the rest of those details for the last episode. And we also covered our other business. We've talked about our Amazon business here on the podcast, but I don't think we had ever covered the Travel Lost Frontier until last episode. So we talked about Travel Lost Frontier. It's our travel business and how we're running it this summer. And then what we do is specifically we refer people for great like Alaskan activities, lodging, etc., etc. And we even discussed potentially being on Turo with a rental car. So go check us out there. You can find us on Instagram through that business. literally travel the last frontier. That's the
Yeah,
business.
and if you're a local or you're looking to visit Alaska, check us out. We've got some discount codes and relationships we set up with a few vendors so you can save a few dollars.
Yeah, and we don't just go around like anybody that pays us, we're going to put you on our list. We tend to vet them and find the best vendors that we can. So if they're on our list, it means we really like them and recommend them to you all. Anywho, this episode, we'll be talking mostly about our other business, the Amazon related business. And I guess, do you want to take it away? You have that article?
Yeah, so an article popped up the other day in my article feed from Google, I guess, on my phone, because they listen to me and look at my cookies and just feed me the political information they want me to know.
Big brother right there, right?
Looking out for me every step of the way. I'm very grateful. That's why I have willingly put their microphones all throughout my house. So this article is primarily about e-commerce and third-party sellers. So a third-party seller is someone or a business, an entity that sells on a platform and uses that platform to market or sell their products. So an example for us, we are third-party sellers on Amazon as well as a few other platforms. You would also be a third-party seller if you sell on eBay or Etsy or what's that other
Poshmark.
one? Poshmark, thank you. If you sell on any of those, you are a third-party seller versus when Amazon themselves sells on Amazon.com, which they do, they are not considered a third-party seller.
It's their direct website.
That was probably an overcomplicated explanation, but I think that's important to know as I summarize and skim this article. So Amazon, basically, title of this article, Amazon and eBay fight legislation that would unmask third-party sellers.
Their subtitle is Federal and State Bills Come as E-Commerce Gains Ground.
Yeah, so
And it was published a few days ago from when we're recording this. So it was recorded June 11th and then was posted at 8:15 in the morning.
Yeah, we'll throw a link of this in the thingamajig below. Now, I just noticed this is interesting. There's a photo here that's photographed by Michael Nagel.
No way.
But his Nagel is spelled wrong, so that's sad. All right, so Amazon.
I'm sorry for you, Michael.
And other online-only retailers are trying to kill a proposed federal and state legislation that would make the companies disclose contact information for third-party sellers. The bills would force Amazon and others to verify the identities of third-party sellers and provide consumers with ways to contact the stores. The proposed legislation is pitting brick-and-mortar retailers, such as Home Depot, Walgreens, JCPenney, who are supporting the bill, against online retailers, Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Poshmark, and others, which argue the legislation would harm small sellers. All right, so brick and mortar retailers lost ground to online retailers throughout the pandemic for obvious reasons. I would say mostly due to government intervention. But 20% of consumer retail purchases were made online in 2020.
We covered that in a previous episode.
I think we've talked about before. That was nearly double 2019 in previous years.
And specifically, Amazon went from having 5% of that market in 2019, so 5% of 10%, right? Or 5% like total. And then they went from 20% of the online sales, 10% of that is on Amazon, which is wild.
Oh, excuse me. It says e-commerce was 14% of the market in 2019. But yeah, Amazon was 5% of the total market in 19, and they doubled for 20. The legislation is also being proposed in response to a slew of counterfeit, stolen, and dangerous items appearing on marketplace sites. Online retailers argued the bills would compromise the privacy of third-party sellers, and on some platforms, the majority of merchants run their businesses out of their homes. Etsy, for example, says 97% of its sellers do, and a survey of Amazon sellers found 70% have work outside of their Amazon business, suggesting they may also run it from their homes. I know that is very likely true. A lot of small Amazon, eBay, Etsy, kind of like a side hustle, or even then it's not hard to do full-time income out of your garage
So
on
clearly,
those platforms.
clearly based off Etsy. Etsy, I guess, does what?
Etsy's more homemade.
Oh, only 3% of them don't work in their home. So that doesn't mean, though, that they're not a small business. They just don't work in their home. 97% of them, of the sellers on Etsy, work from their home. That's wild. So that means all of them, including most likely, because I don't think Etsy itself sells anything. They're just a platform. But all of the people that sell stuff on their platform all relate to they're considered a third-party seller, like we discussed earlier.
Yes. Okay, so here's a quote from the article. When you look at the unintended consequences of sellers trying to choose between their privacy and their safety and livelihood, the result is you're going to have fewer sellers online. And that really just benefits Walmart, Home Depot, and Lowe's, the big
And anything like
big
them,
box
yeah.
retailers. And that's a quote from Alexis Marvel. Now, I would disagree with what Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel, that's fun.
I would disagree with what she said there because Walmart themselves has an ever-increasing amount of third-party sellers. If you don't know that, that's something that they've been working on for, I think, a couple years now.
Specifically online, just to clarify.
So I think Walmart, while they are a huge national and global brick and mortar store, they are upping their game in order to compete with Amazon by really expanding their e-commerce side. And so I think they would also be harmed by this as well. The anonymity, though, provides cover for fraudsters. Ooh. It's not uncommon to find counterfeit and potentially harmful items on marketplace sites. In 2018, the Government Accountability Office ordered 47 items, including shoes, travel mugs, cosmetics, and phone chargers from third-party sellers on, in quotes, popular consumer websites, and determined 20 of them were counterfeit. Let's unpack that a little bit there. A government agency ordered 47 items from some e-commerce website or assortment of e-commerce websites, and they decided 20 of them were counterfeit. That sounds really bad at surface level, and that's what they're trying to make it sound like. Now, do you think that this government agency randomly ordered 47 items? Or they
Probably
perused thousands until they found 47 that potentially looked fraudulent?
I'd probably go with that one.
Obviously the second one. So,
Also, what does 47 items mean? That's what I kind of want to know. Like, clearly it says just a few options there of the shoes, mugs, cosmetics, and phone chargers. But shoes and cosmetics are already prone, no matter if it's sold in store or not. But yes, completely online is susceptible to this. It's not, those things aren't allowed. Like, you can't sell on Amazon. You're not even allowed to sell on Amazon counterfeit shoes. They catch you doing it, you're gone off the site. And you get, as the buyer, you have that consumer, that customer service there with Amazon. They'll refund your money. They'll deal with all of it, right? They're not gladly selling, if it's, from Amazon specifically, even eBay though too. They're not gladly selling like counterfeit shoes and cosmetics and so on.
yeah, so
But phone chargers and travel mugs is very interesting to me. Like, travel mug, like, does that mean let's say on Etsy. I don't know. I'd have to go look or try to find out where they found this info. Where did they buy the travel mugs from? If it's from Etsy, I mean, most of those people are probably saying, hey, this special kind of travel mug, but I did some sort of fun creative thing on it. Is that I'm not sure what the counterfeit laws are for that, but can they not use that brand name and say that it is that brand name, or they just get to go, oh, look, these are fun, not Tervis tumblers, and I put some fun bedazzles on it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of wondering what counterfeit.
So when they say travel
laws
mugs,
are.
they're probably talking about the high end, like Yeti mugs, those kind of
Sure.
things.
But I'm
And
wondering if it's like, okay, somebody's actually doing what we're thinking, which is like they're claiming it's Yeti, but they like, got some sort of cheap something and threw a similar logo on the mug and claiming it's Yeti. Or is it more like they're just using the brand name when they shouldn't be and they're like editing it somehow?
I see. Yeah, it would be interesting to unpack exactly what items they ordered. I think there definitely is some validity to this. There's plenty of counterfeit items out there, and that is wrong. Those items should be stopped. The best way to stop counterfeit items, I don't personally know. I think the government does play a role in that. I think also these e-commerce platforms play an even more, or rather, a bigger role than the government should. And Amazon, I personally believe, as a buyer and a seller on the platform for years, does a really, really good job of this, of ensuring that their sellers are reputable. You can't just sign up today and start selling knockoff Nikes on Amazon tomorrow. There's a vetting process. They verify your identity as a
Before you
person,
sell?
as a citizen of the U.S., as a individual from a different country, before you can even have an account open. And then
Gotcha.
just because you have an account doesn't mean you can go sell whatever you want. There are many different hoops you have to jump through and different processes to get approved to sell for major brands, especially those that are commonly counterfeited. Nike being an example. That's not an easy one to get ungated in, as the terminology is. And so because of that, and because of how Amazon regulates it, I know they also inspect goods in their warehouses from time to time. And if customers complain about goods, they will smack the crap out of the seller. And you can get banned permanently from selling on their platform. Now, other platforms such as eBay probably don't do as great a job. I would think that this agency probably did most of their shopping for these 47 items on a platform like eBay. And it's super vague. They just said marketplace sites. That means they could have gone on Facebook and seen that
Right.
90% off Ray-Ban ad that we've all seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they ordered on there, which everybody clearly knows is fake.
Well, hopefully. If
Well,
you
I
don't
guess-
know,
I
we're
guess
just
not.
bursting your bubble here.
They keep running that ad, so it must be working. But yeah, eBay is a little bit more hands off than Amazon in interacting with their sellers and what items are actually sold. Amazon in many cases can get hands on a lot of items when sellers use their fulfillment centers for their inventory. eBay doesn't do any of that. But I did notice eBay within the last year or so recently started a sneaker or like high-end shoe authentication system. And I think it's kind of cool. I'm not into shoes, basketball shoes, whatever the popular ones to collect are. But eBay now has a system where a seller can send a pair of shoes, used or new, into a authentication center. I don't know exactly how that works. Then that center, run by eBay or a third party, verifies, yep, these shoes are legit Nikes of this model. And then the seller on that listing can get a special little badge saying these shoes are legit. eBay backs it up. And so you have an extra level of guarantee that they're not counterfeits. So that's interesting that eBay's starting to do that. And I would guess that's maybe because of a lot of counterfeit shoe issues in the past. And also eBay trying to attract that high-end shoe resale market because there's a lot of demand and money, cash flow in that market right now. I think we should keep moving past counterfeits. Did you have something else?
I do find it interesting that whatever these 47 items are, and that I think it was already mentioned with this weird like Home Depot and Lowe's. Like I do know that they sell some, like clearly they sell tools and certain electronics and stuff. But as a whole, I'm kind of confused as to why they would be, I mean, I understand why they would be benefited, but do I buy lumber online? Do I buy appliances online?
Hold on, we'll get to that. There's another part of the
Okay.
article that talks a little bit more about what you're getting at.
Okay.
All right. That was counterfeit items. Now, even non-counterfeit items bought from third-party sellers have been implicated in consumer harm. Oh, no. Because first-party items have never harmed consumers.
What? Weird.
In April 2018, a 19-month-old in Texas was injured after ingesting a battery that fell out of a loose battery compartment
That's terrible.
in a third-party Apple TV remote.
I do kind of wonder, what does that mean though? What's a third party Apple TV remote?
Means it's not genuine OEM from the Apple factory.
Is that what that means? Or I'm just trying to figure out if that's what that means, or if it could also mean a third party sold an actual name brand Apple TV remote.
No, I don't think they were selling a counterfeit or a secondhand or an actual TV Apple product. They're selling a aftermarket remote that interfaces with this Apple TV system.
If that's what that means.
I think that's what they're saying. Now, the parents asked Amazon to stop selling the defective product and requested contact information for Mr. Hugh Z. who ran the Amazon store. They never got a response from him. The parents sued Amazon, saying the retailer is liable for the defective product. On the other hand, Amazon says it serves as a middleman and bears no liability. So I think this is a little extra, maybe on the part of the parents. It doesn't seem like that remote was extremely dangerous or defective in any way. Perhaps the battery compartment was loose, and that is a flaw that could have been fixed. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? If a battery falls out of a remote and your 19-month-old eats it, is that the manufacturer's fault? Or is something else to blame there? Should a 19-month-old...
It's not even the manufacturer. They're not even contacting the manufacturer. They're wanting to blame the third-party seller, and beyond that, they were blaming Amazon because Amazon didn't want to take it off their site.
I'm assuming the third-party seller is in some way the manufacturer. This seems like a private label kind of item, which they might not have manufactured themselves, but they probably sourced directly from a manufacturer, just as Amazon would their Amazon Basics line.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on like the third-party seller the parents going after them, but really they tried to go after Amazon.
Well, they were going after anyone they could. At the risk of being too harsh, I think perhaps the ones first at fault here are the parents. I would not give my 19-month-old a TV remote. And if my 19-month-old got a TV remote and somehow ate part of it, I would feel at fault there.
I mean, that's not necessarily what this story said. There's no details about the 19-month-old getting the remote, but I do see your point.
Yeah.
The battery fell out.
Anyway,
Out of the
so
compartment.
that is the article's example of consumer harm from third parties. Seems not that bad to me.
I mean, please clarify. That is sad that 19-month-old choked on that item or the battery from the item. That's not okay.
Yes. Yes.
But it is kind of like taken to a new extreme of like, okay, who do we blame here? Keyword blame.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, why do we take it to that level of blaming somebody versus like, okay, let's break this down?
Yeah. Okay, so it's that argument, among others, that has brick and mortar retailers pushing for changes. Consumer product laws hold businesses like Target and Home Depot liable for injuries if the stores do not take sufficient measures to keep defective products from reaching consumers. Online marketplaces haven't been subject to those rules since they don't control third-party sellers. That doesn't mean Amazon hasn't felt pressure to address the issue. Last month, the company issued a report stating they had seized and destroyed over 2 million counterfeit products sent to their warehouses. And to fight counterfeiters, Amazon has introduced a new seller verification system that connects one-on-one with prospective sellers through a video chat or in person, etc., etc. So I just went through this myself, opening an additional account for our business, and I was quite impressed with Amazon's identity verification. I had to upload a lot of documentation, then I had to make an appointment for a video chat with an Amazon representative. We talked, he verified my identity visually and through voice, and I had to show him some of my documents over the camera. I had to prove in a few various ways that my ID card was legit and not just like a little piece of paper. I thought it was very well done, and I think they're taking that very seriously. So, all that said, online retailers have formed two groups to fight the bills. One started 6 weeks ago, Makers and Merchants Coalition, funded by a range of companies such as Amazon, Etsy, Rakuten, and others like PayPal, Google, Microsoft. The other coalition to protect American small sellers started 10 weeks ago funded by eBay, Etsy, Poshmark, and a few others, which exclusively have third-party sellers. On the other side of those coalitions, Buy Safe America, which includes Home Depot, Lowe's, Walgreens, CVS, others, your standard brick and mortar national chains.
You know what's interesting in that name, that last one specifically, Buy Safe America Coalition. It's like they're trying to make a point that, they, I guess, are American-based companies, but it's ironic because I guarantee you a lot of them sell international products, products that were made internationally. Mm-hmm. Not just American-made.
Yes, they're pandering.
And doesn't
they're pandering
also mean
for patriotism,
right? And doesn't also mean that American-made is also the best made. That's also clear. Just in maybe I'll just say cars. American-made cars aren't known to do better than internationally made cars.
Yeah. So I think that's nearly entirely the whole of the article, and
But it is
I have a couple
interesting.
thoughts.
It's interesting. It's not just federal though. That there are. It says that one of the last points is just that 17 states have proposed legislation to push online retailers to offer more transparency about third-party sellers, and it's been there's federal legislation about it too.
Yeah. I'll first acknowledge that, yeah, there are potentially issues with third-party sellers being able to get away with a little easier selling counterfeit or potentially dangerous items. Easier for them to get away with it than Target having it stocked on their shelves. Now, that said, I think the platforms that these third-party sellers are on are the ones that should bear the responsibility of that. And I think Amazon is doing a fabulous job. And I think one big thing that this article missed is Amazon recently, I believe it was September of 2020, made public the addresses and contact information of all third-party sellers. As of now, and you can go check this for yourself, go to an item you're interested in purchasing on Amazon, click the see all the options for sale, then click on one of the actual sellers and it'll take you to their seller page. And when you're on there, you can see their business's address as well as some methods to contact them. And usually the methods to contact them are through the Amazon platform. And that's the whole point of the Amazon platform, right? They're the mediator between the buyer and the seller. So you don't want to cut them out. So with all that in mind, I think it's interesting to look at the two different sides of the argument. So we have the big e-commerce platforms on one side fighting to protect the privacy of their third-party sellers. And then on the other side, you have primarily brick and mortar retailers that probably do most, if not all, of their sales through brick and mortar transactions. They're not too much in the e-commerce game. I don't think too many. It's probably a pretty small percentage of revenue that Home Depot gets through their website. I think what's really going on here is the brick and mortar companies that are not in e-commerce or are having trouble transitioning to e-commerce are seeing Amazon, eBay, etc. grow, and that competition continue to grow, and it's hard for them to compete with e-commerce. And we see that year after year, especially after what happened in 2020. So I think they're finding any way they can to try to target e-commerce and especially make the barrier of entry more difficult for third-party sellers. Because what this does is it makes it a little harder. You have to be willing to give up some of your privacy as a seller if you're going to operate out of your home. Or, quite honestly, I guess you could just go get a P.O. box. And then you still have some of that anonymity.
Right. But that's one more step for, at-home business to take. Because you have to pay for a P.O. box.
Yeah, it's just another step. Now, another part of this bill is making it more streamlined to contact a third-party seller, a third-party business. And in my mind, that means, okay, then that business would need to have their own website. They would need to have their own physical address beyond like a P.O. box published somewhere. They'd also need to have a customer service phone line. And that's just not something that small business third-party sellers can handle.
That's not what a lot of small businesses start out at either. There's plenty that just start their business through Instagram, through Facebook. They don't have a website.
Yeah,
They don't say they don't say contact me via phone. They just do very small, typically local, but sometimes they'll do shipping and whatnot. If they're even through Instagram and Facebook, right? They could still ship if they have just those sorts of pages. Yeah, but you start to escalate that and say, okay, you're raising the minimum entry bar to way higher. That's going to just leave behind those that would want to or could start smaller. That that's not necessarily good either. You don't want to make the minimum starting point so high that not enough competition occurs. And then what? It basically becomes a monopoly. Or I guess however many big guys are out there, that many. You don't want that.
Yeah. So that's one side. The brick and mortar retailers have a lot to gain financially and business wise by reducing the number of third party sellers. And I think that's something you should always investigate when it comes to statements that businesses make, political things, et cetera, et cetera. You got to look at the motives. So I don't personally believe that these stores promoting this legislation actually care about the American consumer. I think they're in this because of their bottom line, and they're hurting because they're getting wrecked by e-commerce and they can't keep up. And that's okay. That's how industry works. Look at a business like Sears. What happened to them? I don't know exactly, but they didn't continue to adapt and innovate as the consumer and technology changed. They stayed stagnant, and they more or less are irrelevant now. Now, on the other side, we have the e-commerce giants like Amazon and eBay. I don't believe that they actually care about their third-party sellers either. I think they actually care about the bottom line. And end of the day, if they lose third-party sellers, they lose revenue. That's pretty simple. To an extent, they need to protect their third-party sellers. Otherwise, their business will shrink.
Yeah, because that's their business model. Right now, their business model, all of them, especially eBay and things like Etsy and Poshmark, they're all completely based on third-party sellers. I mean, that's not necessarily what you call them when you go on there, though. That's not what you would think.
Yeah, big time. And I would guess, I know there are full-time eBay sellers. There are large businesses that utilize eBay as their platform. But for something like Etsy and Poshmark, that's probably a large percentage of their sellers. It's a side hustle. It's a hobby business.
Yes.
And I'm not too familiar with those platforms. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I really don't think there's too many people pulling full-time level income from those platforms. So I think those ones are the ones that are going to hurt the most.
Yes. Especially Poshmark and Etsy, for just the idea of right now they're already getting, I think, when did we talk about this? We talked about this maybe a couple podcasts ago, or maybe we didn't talk about it on the podcast. There was this tax exemption thing that went through. Remember that?
Yeah, the change in the tax code.
Maybe we talked about that.
Yeah, we did talk about it. To summarize, the IRS had a certain number, I can't remember what it was, and at that level, marketplaces like eBay and such had to report their sellers' income to the IRS.
I think it was something, correct me if I'm wrong.
Was it 20 grand?
I thought it was like 2,000.
2,000? I don't know, but that limit has been basically gotten rid of, and as soon as you sell one item on eBay, you're now going to get tax forms. Technically, legally speaking, you were supposed to report that income no matter how much it was, but there wasn't really a way for anyone to verify that unless eBay or Amazon sent a, what is that, a W-9?
Yeah, something like that.
Or a 1099, 1099-K, I think.
Well, and
They would send that to you as well as to the IRS, and that was the forcing action that made you file that income.
it wasn't necessarily like a loophole, like, oh wow, like people are avoiding like paying, like saying their income. Like the minimum was still there of like if they sold over $2,000, like they still got that tax thing. Now it's like something like, I don't know, I can't remember what you said from last time, maybe 500, something like that. $500 or one item or 20 items or something. Well, a lot of those things, especially like eBay, Poshmark, even now Facebook Marketplace, people just use it like a garage sale. It's not like these people, like it's not like somebody who's selling under $2,000 is actually like, I'm here to make like a lot of income. Typically speaking, it's probably just like a hobby on the side. I might as well make a few bucks if, I might as well get rid of my, especially on Poshmark. Poshmark is popular for influencers to use from like Instagram and stuff to sell their clothes. Etsy clearly just for handmade goods. And so those sorts of places, or eBay too, I guess, can be more like techie stuff that people sell used. It's not necessarily for like, okay, I found this at a great deal and I'm going to resell it online, though people do that on all those platforms. But typically it's the idea of like, I bought this for myself, I don't want it anymore, it's still in good condition, might as well sell it. Poshmark, eBay, Etsy, that's why a lot of those places do well, is because they're set up to make it somewhat easy for somebody to sell something like that.
Yeah, so that's something to think about, the motives of the businesses on both sides. Nowhere in this article did we hear anything about a third-party seller taking a stand and forming a group. It's just the big businesses on either side of the argument, which I think is really interesting. Because
it's all about their marketing strategy. It's their business idea. It's their business platform. It's not, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, all those, Walgreens, CVS is all based on local locations that they have physical stores for, versus Amazon. I mean, they are starting to open up stores, but typically speaking, they're all online. They're all online. eBay, Etsy, Poshmark, they're all online. Their business is not to sell items typically. I mean, though Amazon does, but eBay, Etsy, Poshmark, it's their application. Just like Uber is an application-based system. Airbnb is an application-based system. They're not necessarily, Uber doesn't have cars that they're renting out, but taxiing out, excuse me. They're offering a platform for you as a consumer and I guess a quote unquote seller to sell your time and your car and your driving skills to Uber people.
Yeah. Let's look at this from an economic standpoint, okay? Supply and demand, the basics of economics. So when you have third-party sellers in the equation, there are more sellers, which would imply more supply, right? Is that safe to assume?
Say that again. Now I'm getting confused. Go ahead.
When you have third-party sellers on these marketplaces, there's more sellers, so there's more supply.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
To an extent. They're probably, yeah. And there likely is the same demand. So what's happening is...
And whenever you increase supply, the price decreases.
Yeah. So there's more competition. So the prices are more competitive with each other and better for the end consumer. Now, if you remove third-party sellers, there's less sellers, less supply, still the same demand, prices will likely go up. And who's to gain from that? Your brick and mortar stores, not the customer. And I think that's interesting because the whole argument for this legislation is, it's to protect the customer. And perhaps maybe something like this could have helped little Johnny from swallowing a battery. Perhaps. I'm doubtful. I
I
think
will say
batteries can
this.
fall out of any remote,
It could
given
have.
enough shaking.
And the parents were not forced to buy that remote. It wasn't the only remote available on Amazon. So they chose to stay with it. They clearly knew that the battery case was loose. And unfortunately, yeah, little Johnny swallowed the battery. Not okay. Very sad situation. But it's not like that was the only TV remote available either, because there was a big supply.
This legislation would do more harm to the end consumer than it would gain. Now, yes, there are some bad apples out there, and it's a little easier for bad apples in the third-party world to get away with stuff. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there. All right, well, thanks for listening to our kind of ramblings and thinking out loud as we went through this article. There's a lot of comments on this, mostly pro this legislation. So I'd encourage you, give this some thought, give it a read. Let me know what you think. Are we wrong? Are we biased because we are a third-party seller? Think about my motives.
If you're on YouTube watching this, you can comment down below. If you are on the whatever podcast app you're listening to, you can find us on Instagram at jellybagel_AK. And Josiah is at
baconbagel_AK.
So you can find us there and leave us your feedback. What do you think? You can also find our travel at Travel Last Frontier. Anything else? I think that's anything.
Thanks for listening and watching, and we will see you the next time we see you.
Or you listen to us, something like that, right?
Whatever. Peace.
Okay, bye.